In our professional lives, we leave nothing to chance. We optimize our schedules, demand excellence in our businesses, and refuse to settle for mediocrity in our careers. But strangely, when it comes to our own bodies, we start negotiating. We tell ourselves we are too busy. We promise we'll start again on Monday. We accept exhaustion as a price of admission for success. My guest today says that is a lie. She argues that you cannot simply diet your way out of burnout or hustle your way to a better physique. And if you are relying on willpower alone, you have already lost. Her name is Rachel Godfrey. She is a former physio, a high-performance mentor, and the founder of Onyx. She specializes in a very specific type of person, the high-achieving woman who refuses to be average. She believes that many leaders are suffering from what she calls the campaign lifestyle, a cycle of extreme work followed by extreme burnout, and that the only way to break it is not through a meal plan, but through an identity upgrade. If you have ever felt like your career is thriving, but your body is just surviving, this conversation is for you. I'm your host, Tatjana Pandurevic. Let's dive in. Rachel, welcome to the Moonshot Podcast. It's fantastic to have you here as we get into all things about high performance, particularly for women.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Brilliant. Let's get right in. So you're the founder of Onyx and you specialize in the health of high-performing women. But you've identified a dangerous paradox, which is that the exact same traits that make these women high-performing, their drive and their discipline, are often the things that destroy them at the same time. Why is this?
I'm so glad that you brought this up first because it's one of these things that really gets missed. And I really feel that high achievers are misunderstood. And this whole premise initially started with me and myself, right? Because, you start off, go through school, you go through university, you do well, your grades are good. And your self-worth becomes wrapped up in achieving and then overachieving. And I think you have this innate sense of insufficiency and not being enough. And so it comes down to self-worth. But the thing is with high achievers is that people will say things like, oh, well, just do less. Oh, you need some more balance in your life. Do you know how frustrating that is for a high achiever to hear that? We have a real fuck you response to that. And you just don't understand me. And fundamentally, if somebody says that, they do not understand the DNA of a high achiever. Because what happens is that when somebody is a high achiever and their sense of self-worth is usually built in and wrapped up in being busy and achieving, these traits, so that, for example, something like we also talk a lot about completion addiction, right? And things like perfectionism, all of these traits drive you in the early part of your career. So it helps you endure a lot of pain, work harder, work longer hours, to do all of the things, to become the fixer, to fix all of the problems that, other people can't do. You're generally the most intelligent person in a room. You're generally the problem solver, the one who can think outside the box. All of these traits are amazing and they accelerate your career in the early days and they're massively rewarded. But then it gets to a stage in your career where these become the glass ceiling, and it's particularly the roadblock then to your health. So what usually happens in achievement is that you will do well at school, you'll do well at university, you get all of the accolades, you get the external validation, this makes you feel good and you think more is better. You get to a stage where you can push through that in your mid-20s and then you get to your 30s and then things start breaking down, right? We start seeing in health where we have things like adrenal fatigue, we have injuries that come through sport, we have people who are very overweight, who have binge eating, emotional eating, binge drinking, all of these things that are considered very normal, but they're a side effect of how somebody is essentially doing life. So we have to rewire the high achiever's brain so that what got you here is not going to get you there. So when we talk about things like completion addiction, so completion addiction is one of these sort of ideas that David and I came up with. And it actually came from one of our clients. He was raising raising money for a business that he'd started, and this process of raising funds raising finance takes months, and then this went on for 18 months of raising money, and he could not put this down. And the part about being an entrepreneur is that you have to be able to pick things up and put things down, because a lot of problems don't actually get solved in the moment. Problems actually get solved when you put them down and you need to allow for time, or you need to allow for space, or you need to allow for your downloads and your creativity to catch up and think outside the box. Because entrepreneurship is playing beyond the rules. It is doing something that hasn't been done before. So you can't be addicted to ticking something off your list. You have to be okay with the uncertainty of like letting it go.
So for people who have what you call completion addiction, and I'm sure many people can relate, how do you actually go about slowing down, or as you say, putting things down? Because I'm sure that's much easier said than done.
It is. And, we have to take a 30,000 foot view here and rewire your relationship, first of all, with self. Because remember what I said, that if your identity and your self-worth is being busy and achieving and overachieving, then you're never going to feel enough. And so therefore that perpetuates these patterns of thought and behavior and these traits that you're running in your head 24/7, which means that you're then more addicted to foods, you're more likely to use alcohol to escape, these feelings of stress. And so we have to completely rewire your relationship with self and rewire your relationship with the past, the present, and the future. And most importantly, your relationship with uncertainty. Because every single answer to every question that we have in the future is, I don't know, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the next hour. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month, in the next year. We can have our best laid plans, but the honest answer is, we don't know. And so the sooner that we can get comfortable with, I don't know, and getting this self-worth of, I will back myself, I know the universe has my back, and I will always land on my feet, the sooner we can get there, that's when we can reduce the overall stress and we can take a 30,000 foot view in something, because your problems now are going to be completely irrelevant in 2, 3, 6 months' time, right? The stuff that we were worrying about 6 months ago is honestly completely irrelevant. So we have to be able to rewire this relationship with uncertainty. And that comes down to rewiring your relationship with self, which means making sure that you are validated from the inside. You don't have this external validation.
You have this concept, and I've heard you talk about this. You call it human doing.
Yes.
Where a person's self-worth is entirely tied to their productivity. And I think a lot of us are guilty of this. We can get into the state where we only feel good about ourselves when we're being productive. And I know I've certainly felt this. What does this specifically do to us biologically? And is it a good thing, or is it perhaps not the best way to approach the world?
It's one of those things that it's a blessing and it's a curse. And I think David came up with the concept of the human doing. David, for anybody listening, is my husband and my business partner, and he specialized in emotional and behavioral change. And so he came up with this concept, I think, from watching me over the years. And by the time we met, over 10 years ago now, I'd come a long way in my human doingness, right? And my self-worth was completely wrapped up in being busy and achieving. And I think the worst thing that somebody could have said to me is, you're not doing enough and you're lazy. That to me would have been so cutting. Not, oh, your work isn't good enough or whatever it is. It would have been, you're lazy.
Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that's kind of conditioned into us as kids. Maybe it's my era of, you can always do more and don't sit around. I mean, look at the generation now, right? But you can always do more. And I never watch TV, for example. I always still like to be productive and doing things, but I am very good now at being able to switch off. And I think also just understanding that being busy all the time doesn't necessarily mean you're productive. I mean, I've got 2 young children now, lots of business stuff going on. There is no way I would have been able to manage that kind of level of responsibility if I was still being busy doing all of the things, right?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of misconceptions around productivity. I had a business mentor once who talked about the concept of managing time, saying that's not actually the most effective way to manage your schedule, but actually managing your energy is by far the most productive thing you can do. And so it's reframing what productivity actually is, which is sometimes moving fast, sometimes slowing down, and it's an entirely different framing.
Absolutely, especially as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And, going back to, you were talking about like the biology of like what this does to us. Well, it's a massive stress response on the body. And I think the most important thing as a visionary entrepreneur is to be able to have creative space and creative play. Like, how are you going to connect with your higher self? How are you going to get the downloads? How are you going to get the ideas if you don't allow space? You know, one of my big things for next year is to have a clear diary. Like, I don't want meetings in my diary. So I'm being so intentional with my time and my space so that I can just have time, right? So that I can go and get what I call lost in life. Like, lost in life means going for a beach walk every morning, and I don't have a phone with me, and I literally spend time out in open and just allow my thoughts to come and go. You know, like when you're in the shower and you're just kind of away with the fairies, or lost in life, as I call it. I'm a lot more intentional now about trying to create more of that space in my life. And it's, you know, it's been a hard transition, right? Because you think that, oh God, this is such a waste of time and I'm not being productive and I'm not ticking things off my to-do list. But as you were alluding to there, like, time is not linear. You know, if we're going to talk about energy and frequency, well, there are many time-space realities. And so which one are you going to choose, and which identity are you going to be in which time-space reality? And so, you know, a lot of people think that this is, you know, all woo-woo. You can think what you like, but actually when you spend enough time in business, you start to realize that you have to kind of have this 30,000 foot view and really choose your identity, choose your energy, and choose what you're moving towards, not what you're trying to get away from. And I think in the early days of entrepreneurship, a lot of people really struggle with, well, I've just got to make more money. I've just got to do this. I've just got to do that. Well, what do you want more of instead? And we have to cultivate that. And I love the energy thing, because that is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I first kind of really started focusing and being more deliberate about this time, despite still feeling anxiety about
Yeah, and that's
having downtime, is this feeling of I can hear myself think.
yes.
And it's just that quiet understanding of I can finally hear my own thoughts, which is, like you said, it helps you be creative. It helps you realign, reset. It helps you understand what your intentions are and what your intuition is, because you've given yourself that space.
You know, I think Chris Will said this once, and I don't know where he got it from, but the magic that you are looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. And that is just a phrase that comes up over and over again for me and now I actively seek out, okay, so what am I avoiding? Where am I procrastinating? What am I doing that is busy work, that is avoiding the work that I really need to do? And so I think we can feel all the feels, and it's not about escaping those feelings of, oh God, I should be doing this, and like that anxiety of not working. It's not, it's understanding that, and just, you know, think of it like this. So I talk about fear in the same way. So fear really holds a lot of people back. What if I fail? What if I fuck up? Blah, blah, blah. Welcome to entrepreneurship. Like, this is part of it. You have to fail, learn to fail faster, move fast and break things, whatever the old Facebook saying was. We have to fail, and we have to fail faster. Great. We now know what doesn't work so that we can move closer towards what does work. But that fear, it goes from being, and judgment as well. Like, people are so afraid of what other people think of them. And the reality is that you are only ever judged by somebody who doesn't even remotely have their own shit together. You will never, ever be judged by somebody who's further ahead than you. And so once you start to understand that, not just on a logical level, but on an emotional level, it's so freeing. And so when we think about fear, it goes from being like this noose around your neck of, oh my God, what if this, what if that? And again, this goes back to overanalyzing. You know, that's one of the traits that a lot of overachievers have, is that they want to know the answer to everything before they actually make a move. Well, fear goes from being that, the noose around your neck that stops you taking action, to being like a kid in the backseat of the car. Like, my son is 7, my daughter's 5. My son saying to me, hey, mommy, do you know where you're going? You know, where are you going? Or you took a wrong turn. Like, he likes to, you know, he really likes to tell me when I've taken a wrong turn in a car. Why are you going this way? This isn't the way that we usually go. It's almost like the ego there is just checking that you're still safe. Because the ego likes to keep you safe. It likes to keep you in the same place. It doesn't like change. And so fear and the ego, we have to treat it like a little kid in the backseat of, hey, yeah, it's okay. Like, I know where I'm going. It's all good. So we don't want to try and get rid of the ego. We just have to, you know, stroke the ego a little bit sometimes, be like, there, it's okay. We know what we're doing. And even if we fuck up, we're still going to land on our feet. It's okay.
I remember, I think it was Alex Hormozy who said this, and he was talking about the concept of failure and the fear of failure. And he said, what if you knew that your greatest success was 10 failures away? How quickly would you be rushing through to getting as many of those failures done as possible to get to that point? And so it's just understanding that it is part of the process. It is not an end point.
And I think as well, don't be afraid to like waste a little bit of time. Think about all of the things that you've done in your career to date, of things that just take time, the boring, monotonous shit tasks that actually only a founder can do. So for example, I don't know, like the last time I did this, I was like trying to like figure out which new CRM to use, right? I went with High Level in the end. And so I'm messing around with all of these different things. You go through the trial periods, you set it all up and you're like, this isn't going to work for me. And you might have spent 2 weeks on this thing. Is that a waste of time? Or is that, well, I know that doesn't work, so that one's knocked off the list and I will now find one that does. And that's exactly what I did, moving through yet another CRM. Because you know when it gets that time to change your CRM, you're like, oh God. So you ask all of your friends, you ask all your successful friends what they're using. And there's usually sort of one or two that come up. And then really you do have to try them yourself and see which one's going to fit for you and your business. And so is that a waste of time? Well, it kind of feels like it. But, you know, you also have to go through that in order to be able to find what is right.
No, it's like absolutely any learning process. You have got to go through that yourself and experience as much of it as possible to eventually get to the point that you're looking to reach. I want to ask you about another concept, which is decision fatigue. It's why the likes of Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg famously wore the same outfit every day, or Charlie Munger, who was really well known for always picking the second item on a menu in any restaurant he went to. Coming home after a big day, making lots of different decisions, I've certainly felt this at 7 p.m., particularly on a taxing day.
Yeah.
Suddenly my willpower to make good, healthy choices is very, very low. What can I do in those moments where my decision fatigue is high, my willpower is low, to still make the right choices for my body?
So what we would usually say is minimal effective dose. So we have to take the 30,000 foot view. So I totally get it on a decision fatigue. The majority of my wardrobe is black. I decided to add a fleck of color today with, you know, a bit of beige, but most of my wardrobe is black. And I did that intentionally about 2 to 3 years ago, because I got to the stage where I was like, I cannot decide what to wear today. So all my gym kit is black. All my, my day-to-day clothes are black. My formal clothes, majority of which are black. And then I have like set colors. I have some neutral colors. And then I also wear denim. So unless it's denim, a neutral color or black, it doesn't feature in my wardrobe, because then I can mix and match and they kind of all go together. I've got like the odd, one or two like pieces that are not a neutral, a black or a denim. And that has removed for me a lot of mental like decision making around what I wear on a day-to-day basis. So I completely understand that. And we have to do the same with food. And it's really funny the way that entrepreneurs, they kind of put wealth and business into one box, and that's like the high priority box. And then we forget about the vessel that actually gets us there in the first place, which is our brain and our body. And this is why we have to merge the two together. And again, why high achievers are misunderstood, because what we can't do is shoehorn yet another diet and exercise program into an already chaotic lifestyle. We really do have to rewire the entire package in order to be able to move somebody from good to great, or from a really poor state of health where somebody's, I say, excelling in business. They are never, ever at their full capacity unless they are physically, mentally and emotionally healthy. And so I talk about the 5 bodies, because we don't just have the physical body. We've got the mental, emotional, spiritual and energetic body as well as the physical. So we've got the 5 bodies, and we have to look at all of these 5 bodies. And the issue with the fitness industry at the moment is that the fitness industry will only focus on the physical body. Eat this amount of calories, do your exercise this way, job done. Well, no wonder people are struggling, because that's a very minimalist way to think about health, and certainly health optimization. Honestly, a monkey could teach you how to track your calories and do X amount of burpees, right? You might lose weight doing that, but for how long? right? We have to look at somebody's lifestyle. We have to look at their spiritual health, their energetic health. We have to consider their emotional health. Unless there is a coach who is doing all of these things, they're not a good coach, right? Or they're at the very beginning of their career, which is also fine. But you will soon find that just doing the whole tracking calories and macros thing does not work for high achievers. And equally, none of my clients track calories and macros. Right? We can build frameworks and we can have what we then have the minimal effective dose. So to your question, how do you manage that? Well, you have to be prepared. You're going to be prepared in business. Why aren't you prepared with your health? Right? So minimal effective dose is, instead of going to the gym 5 days a week, 3 days a week is scheduled into your diary. This is when I work out. I have a non-negotiable standard of doing 10 to 15,000 steps every single day, right? You never miss twice, right? That is a high achiever. So I want to tap into the psychology of what makes my client tick in business. And then I basically just copy and paste it into their health. So when it comes to food, right? Well, we don't need to, have a meal plan. A lot of clients will say, well, can you just give me a meal plan? And I'm like, well, are you 2 years old? I'm not your mother. I don't need to feed you, right? What if I say that there's white fish for dinner, right? And you're going to a steak restaurant entertaining clients. How are you going to cope? No, I need to equip you with the skills in order to make the best decisions that you've got available to you in whatever circumstance it is. Whether you're flying, traveling, you're working in a hotel gym, you're getting room service, you've only got Nando's available to you, whatever it is, you need to think, how do I build my plate? We build the plate by 30 to 50 grams of protein, right? Adding some color on there. So lots of vegetables, lots of fiber, some fruit. And then you ask yourself, is it post-training? Yeah, if it's post-training, great. Well, I'll add some carbs in there as well, single ingredient carbs. Is it evening time? Well, we'll add some carbs in there as well. In the evening time, rice and potatoes. It's really not that hard. And the time that it takes to make a basic steak with just like a handful of salad and some avo is less time than the decision making that you've got going on in your head. So when you set these non-negotiables for yourself, I love the Jocko Willink thing, right? Discipline equals freedom. Because discipline means doing what you said that you will do, irrelevant of your feelings. Right? Your goals don't care about your feelings. What they care about is, are you going to do what you said that you will do? And so minimal effective dose is the most important thing. So depending on where somebody is in their health journey, we work with some clients who are very, very overweight and they've never had any health goals or they've never had any health habits, then we'll start layering them, start stacking them. Initially, it might be that I get somebody doing 8 to 10,000 steps every single day, and they're having a 30 to 50 grams of protein just for breakfast, right? That's where we start. We do that for the first 2 weeks. Great, tick that off. What can we layer in now? Whilst behind the scenes, we're starting to rewire their brain and start to rewire a new identity in them so that they naturally then go to choose healthier foods. They can start to feel better in themselves. I love fast fat loss. Fast fat loss is amazing because it gives somebody the belief that they can do it. So that's how, when you get back at the end of the day, you will have already either pre-planned, pre-prepared, or let's be honest, everyone's always got eggs in their fridge, right?
Yeah. So there's so many things that you've just said there that I absolutely love. Ultimately, so I grew up training to be a professional tennis player and I was always quite athletic. When I transitioned into business, one thing that became starkly apparent is high performance isn't just attributed to sport. It's attributed to every aspect of life. Now that's business, that's health, it might be sport, it might be music or an arts. And there's really common themes that are underlying or foundational to high performance. And they're the things that you've spoken about, which is getting the right sleep, having the right nutrition, hydrating, moving enough every day. And what I particularly love that you touched upon was that preparedness around discipline. And so I've noticed if I leave my food choices to chance in a busy day, I will always look for something that's super convenient and it's probably not the healthiest option. Or if I get home, I'll be like, I'm thinking about a pizza. Like I have not planned for a busy day. On a good day, and I've started realizing this myself, I know I'm going to be busy, so I know I'm checking, do I have egg in the fridge? Do I have steak in the fridge? Things that are really fast but healthy to prepare quickly, maybe some rice. And on those days, despite being really busy, I've already prepared, as you've said, it's a non-negotiable and it's there. But when I leave it to chance, it's very, very not likely that I'm going to be living to a high standard.
You know, I talk about this with my clients. We call it the magic roast chicken. Because I say to all my clients, right, if you do nothing else, roast a chicken on Monday morning. And people are like, roast a chicken on Monday morning? I'm like, I kid you not. Like, this is like the hack of the week. Get a chicken, cover it in a bit of butter, a bit of salt and pepper, bang it in the oven, hour and 20 minutes. There's no mess, right? Your chicken's like, that is literally your breakfast, lunch and dinner for God knows how long. It feeds my kids. Winner, chicken dinner, as they say. It's not hard. It takes zero preparation time. It's an hour and 20 minutes, where I've come home from training stick this thing in the oven. I go up, shower, change my hair, whatever, sort the kids out, ready for school. That's their school lunch done. It's my lunch on the go. And then, all right, if we've got to eat chicken again for dinner, well, there's 2 meals out the day. We'll have roast chicken, big deal. But at least it's done. And so on those days that I know what it's like, where you've got 1,000 decisions to make, especially women, we have 32,000 decisions to make every single day. And there's always these things floating through our heads. And this is why, please, minimal effective dose. If you plan on your worst days, that is the key. Don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until you've got all your ducks in a row, because that is literally how you are failing over and over again. You're planning for the best. You're not planning for the worst, right? We live in the worst. Like, don't wait for all of your problems to disappear. That is only going to happen the day that you die. So don't wait. Don't wish all of your problems go away. Just embrace them. This is life. This is how we are. We've got 32,000 decisions to make, but you never miss twice. And if you miss twice, that's then a decision.
I want to ask you about the second shift that's really specific to women in particular. Busy day, running a business, being an executive, making high impact decisions at work, come home, and then begins your second shift, which is a lot of the housework at home, whether it's kids in the family, and there's often disproportionate expectations that are on women. How does this pressure impact women, and how do you think about this?
I think sometimes as women, we feel like we're fucking surrounded by idiots. And that's our fault, right? That is our fault, because we can do it better. We can do it faster than anybody else. And so we just get on and do it. But then that has such a monumental pressure and a monumental stress. And listen, I'm guilty of this too. And so I think you always have to have a check-in on who can you ask for help, and allow then that help to come in, and understand that, like, daddy's going to do it differently to the way that mommy does it. And that's okay. Like, he's just going to do it his way, whereas I'm going to do it my way. And having, set things and set roles that you do. So this actually happens for us maybe about a year ago. The school admin now and school WhatsApp groups and everything. Honestly, I hate WhatsApp groups, particularly when it comes to other parents. But anyone who knows, like, if you know, you know. But David now takes over the school admin in terms of, like, you have these newsletters through, and there's like 50 million things to sort through. That's now his task. And then he tells me the key points of what's important for each child. And so rather than me spend my time doing that, like, that's David's role. I will also then send David food shopping, and all right, I write the list, but he kind of now knows what goes on a day-to-day basis. And so I've had to delegate some of that responsibility to him. And then there are times where things just kind of like mount up for me again. And then I just say to him, I literally said to him this morning, hey, I really need more help with this. And he's quite happy to help. I think a lot of the time your spouse is looking to support you, but they don't know how to support you because you don't let them in.
Yeah.
Right. And so ask for help. Also training my kids, right? So training my kids to, even if it's small things like, when you finished your dinner, please bring mummy your plate, right? So that I can, put it in a dishwasher. All right, my kids are 5 and 7. Some people have like these militant routines where their kids do loads of chores in the house. Mine don't. I'm letting my kids be kids, but there are certain roles and certain responsibilities that they have. So that would be an example of one of them. My son now, he's 7. Zabi, can you go up and take a shower? After, you come back home from jiu-jitsu, he's all sweaty, go take a shower. And, it kind of takes a little bit, 1 or 2, maybe 3, sometimes 5 times of me saying, hey, Zav, can you go take a shower now, bud? Or when you've finished doing what you're doing, can you go take a shower? And I look at him in the eye and I wait for the yes, mummy. And then I know it's settled. And then I have to just sit back. I can't expect him to just jump on my terms because then I'm creating a people pleaser child. I have to wait. I have to sit back. Sometimes it takes him 5 painful minutes for me to just sit there and go, don't say it again. Don't say it again. Let him do it on his terms. But then he will go and he'll go take a shower by himself now. So I'm trying to teach responsibility in that way, but at the same time, still letting my kids be kids. So I think for other moms, like, ask for help, because I know what it's like to try and do it all yourself. And I still find myself there sometimes where I'm still doing everything myself. And so this is a message to me as it is to everybody else. It's like to ask for help, and people are willing to help.
And another topic that I want to ask you about, so we've spoken about food and diet and identity. What about recovery practices? There's so many influencers that are preaching so many different types of recovery practices.
Are there any particular ones that you want to cover? Because I'll probably tell you they're bullshit.
What do you think about ice baths?
Bullshit. You couldn't pay me a fucking $1 million to get in a bath of ice. Like, I don't care like what the research is or how good it is for you. Like, you know what? Get in a lovely hot warm bath. Like, if you're going to spend that time, why would you get in an ice bath? It's absolutely torturous. Like, no. For me, no. Like, if you want to get in an ice bath and you get off on that shit, like, go get in the ice bath. I can't think of anything more torturous.
Sauna?
Sauna, I can get on board with, right? So I'm a lizard. I like the heat. I live here in the UAE. The sauna, in terms of like recovery process, so let's look at the difference between like a hot sauna and then like infrared sauna. I like an infrared sauna. It's not quite as hot, but I find the experience really enjoyable. Like, if you enjoy getting in an ice bath, maybe get in an ice bath, right? You do you, boo, right? You could not pay me to get in an ice bath. You can, like, I would willingly get in a lovely infrared sauna and just lie there and, read a book. And then you've got the benefits of like hot saunas. I can't remember what the protocols are now. I think Peter Attia did a really good podcast on this, where he was talking about different saunas, the temperature, how long you should spend in it for, detoxification processes, and, all the other health benefits that you get from that, cardiovascular benefits. I don't think we get that from an infrared sauna, but what we do get from an infrared sauna is glowing skin. Again, is the research behind it? I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. I think we have to be now evidence informed. I'm not necessarily evidence based. And the reason being is that we've been doing this for 20 years, right? So yes, we understand and we know what the evidence is. We use some of it, and honestly, we discard some of it because it doesn't work for our clients, doesn't work for us, doesn't fit in with, what we're doing in high performance, and that's fine. But we also use 20 years of the art of coaching and intuition and experience, and that cannot be discounted. And so yes, use science, but if we're waiting for science to catch up, if we're waiting for science to prove what makes us feel good, we're going to be waiting a really long time.
I think a lot of it comes down to intuition as well. I know how I feel after certain practices.
Do you like an ice bath?
I don't love an ice bath, no. I found it a really painful, torturing experience.
Exactly.
Have I done it? Yes, I have done it.
Yeah.
Look, it does feel good afterward.
Right.
But in saying that, I do a maximum of 1 minute and I'm out. And I know people are like, yeah, you can progress and you can do more minutes and more minutes. That's not for me. But I'll happily, after training, I'll go in for a minute,
right,
and that's
so if you love it, good for you. I've got so many of my best friends who like love ice baths and are like, Rach, get in. And I'm like, I put my pinky in there and that's it. But I will, again, recovery practices and protocols. Is it just something you're trying to shoehorn into an already chaotic lifestyle to try and, calm your nervous system, when actually what we need is emotional regulation?
Yeah.
And emotional stability. Like, fat loss is an emotional problem.
Yeah.
High performance is an emotional problem. And so is that going to be something that makes you feel good and it's an addition? Amazing. Go on and do it. I go for a walk every morning on the beach. And that is like, it's literally my spiritual practice. If your spiritual practice is getting in an ice bath, if your spiritual practice is getting in a sauna, and that makes you feel good, amazing. Keep doing it.
I love a morning walk. There is nothing that makes me feel like I'm ready for my day more than that time in the morning.
Could not agree more, honestly. And I think it's like the thing that if you're going to change anything, get outside. And it doesn't have to be, look, I walk for an hour, right? I've got the flexibility in my day, and I now engineer my day so that my days start later, at 9 rather than my day starting at 7. My day now starts at 9 so that I have that time in the morning. And if you don't have time in the morning, you can always have 5 to 10 minutes. Go and walk outside, go and walk around the block. However it is when my kids are young, that's what I did. I go outside for 5 minutes, walk around the block, stick them in a double stroller,
Yeah.
I found a way to do it.
Yeah, there's a great saying. It was someone that was talking about meditation, and it's a old proverb, and it goes along the lines of you should meditate for 20 minutes every day, and if you don't have time to meditate for 20 minutes every day, you should meditate for an hour. And it's about finding that time, and I think it can be done as it's like what you talked about earlier. As long as you're quite disciplined and planned and preparing how you want to incorporate that, it can be during a work break. It
Yeah.
can be during a lunch, but you can get the time in.
And find your version of meditation. So
Yeah.
I don't meditate. I wish I could, but I'm very good at just turning off. So David does like a meditation practice, and he's very good with that. I can't do that, but I can literally switch tasks from this to this and I can close down. So maybe that's what my meditation is my version of it. But
Or it could be the walk that you do for an hour every
Exactly,
morning.
it
That
is.
could be your
Yes.
version of it. Yeah.
Exactly, and I always say, I get up before the kids get up, and it's honestly golden hour. If you're a parent and you're not getting up before your kids to have like an hour of your time, oh my God, I don't know how you're coping in life, because it's literally the one thing that keeps my sanity is like me getting up before the kids, having my own time, whether that's writing my journal, if I've got to do some work, or I want to do some work, I feel inspired to do some work. It's often when I do my best writing. Do something in that time that is productive and it's for you.
I want to ask you about age.
Yes.
So growing up, I mentioned I would train. I was quite athletic, train hard, came home, and I really didn't think about nutrition too much. I kind of ate whatever I wanted, what I felt like, what I craved, and my body weight always remained relatively the same. I was doing lots of cardio. And my mum used to always say to me, wait till you hit 30.
Yeah.
What is this about age and this paradigm of once you start going north of 30, that your body starts to change? How do you need to treat it differently? Why is it just not functioning the same way?
It does function the same way. It's functioning exactly the way that it should. And so this whole age thing is nonsense, right? The number of people that say, oh, well, I put on weight because I'm over 30. I put on weight because I had kids. Like, I put on weight because I hit 40. I'm like, I'm 42. I'm sat here with a six pack. I'm fit. I'm healthy. All my clients fit, healthy, lean. Right? This age thing, we got to stop this. What changes is your habits, right? So you might have grown up and you were in your 20s and you're fit and you're doing cardio, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I'm leaner now than I was in my 20s. Why? Because I was partying in my 20s. Right? I was drinking a lot. No regrets, just stories. I had a great time. But, by the time I hit 31, I had gotten to the stage. I remember it was like 2015, like the summer of 2015, where I had like a particularly like big party season. And I remember getting to the end of that season. I was 30 to 31. And I was like, I do not like the trajectory that my life is going down if I continue this behavior. And so a lot of us have that wake up call. I decided literally there and then, my identity changed and to do something about it. I didn't stop drinking straight away, but I started to drink less and less. And now I don't drink at all, right? And that came through a series of, two back-to-back pregnancies, miscarriage in the middle. Then I just didn't feel good when I was drinking. And then I started to get migraines. And now if I have a drink, I don't feel good. I do not enjoy it like I used to. And so what people do is that the majority continue to eat and drink like they did when they were in their 20s and got away with it. You only got away with it because you were doing so much cardio, right? We see now a lot more people in their 20s are very, very overweight. And I think also the introduction of like, hugely processed foods and things like that. And so this whole idea about, well, wait till you hit 30, wait till you have kids, et cetera, et cetera. Well, most women put on excessive amounts of body fat during pregnancy because they're quote unquote eating for two. Your body doesn't need to eat for two. You're growing a baby, yes, but you only need an extra 200 to 250 calories in your final trimester, right? Which is not a lot. And so I really think that people eat way too much, right? We are massively overfed, but we are undernourished as a society. And why I say that is because we have a huge consumption of calories, liquid calories, calories from like overly processed, like rubbish foods. We're drinking all of our calories. We're drinking as in like coffees or whatever, and your Starbucks lattes, and then funneling down for 70 grams of sugar with also, you're throwing in your muffin there as well and calling it a normal breakfast. And then we're drinking alcohol as well. It's not just the calories and alcohol, it's the behavior change that goes with that. So the next day you haven't slept, you think you've slept, you haven't, you were in a coma, you were not actually sleeping, right? I know, because I've been there. The next day you feel shit. You make shit choices around food. You don't train that day. You probably don't train the next day because you're still feeling a bit rubbish. And as you get older, like, you can't detoxify alcohol like we used to in our 20s, right? And so these things creep up on you, and then you become more and more inactive. And so this is where this whole thing where age comes in of, oh, well, I've just got a dad bod. No, you got a dad bod because you got lazy. You got lazy with your food. You got lazy with your training. And you got lazy in life, right? Your standards slipped. And I'm sorry to say it, you got low standards. And people say, well, I try hard, and I'm like, no. You are being a perfectionist. You are only doing things when it's perfect. And then you're falling off the wagon. That's a really low standard. So because you can't get it perfect, you're not going to do it at all? That's a very low standard, mate. And so when we're looking at progress, boring consistency, going back to the non-negotiables, and you will find that most people over the age of 30, 35, they have got low standards when it comes to their own health. They might have high standards elsewhere in life, but when it comes to their health, low on a pedestal and low activity levels. It really does come down to that. And then they're not fueling the other 5 bodies, their energetic body, their emotional body, their spiritual body. We have to look at all of these 5 things.
So if someone's listening and they really want to change is incredibly difficult because, to your point, it's really associated with identity.
Yes, it is.
And that's a lot of hard work. And James Clear talks about this so well in his book, Atomic Habits, would start with those 1%ers and those little things that you can do. Usually, as you mentioned, people aren't just not eating well, not exercising enough, they're not sleeping well. When you're working with clients, where do you advise them to get started? Because it's really overwhelming to be like, you need to fix all these things in your life at once. Where to begin?
So we can't do it all at once. And so I have like the core principles of, I had a viral video once where I said, 30 to 50 grams of protein 3 times a day. Like, that's a bare minimum standard. 10 to 15,000 steps every single day, right? Making sure that you're sleeping 8 hours a night, and then fixing the psychological habits that are keeping you stuck, which is the stinger, right? Because people are like, I don't want to open Pandora's box. And so you have to think about what's the number one thing that's going to shift the needle, and where are those downfalls right now? For a lot of people, especially women, it comes down to cravings, so physical and emotional cravings. So I always like to start with physical and emotional cravings. And so how do we change, and what do we need to do to manage physical cravings? First of all, sleep, right? If you are not sleeping, you are going to make poor decisions around food. I don't care how healthy you are. If you're one of these people that says, oh, I can function on 4 to 6 hours, good for you. Your body does not like it, right? Minimum 8 hours, right? Or 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night in order to be able to have a healthy metabolism, regulated blood sugar, and make good choices around food. So then how do we manage the physical cravings? The physical cravings we manage through high protein diet, 30 to 50 grams of protein 3 times a day, making sure you've got lots of fiber in your diet, lots of color. I love a vegan diet, which needs to add meat to it, right? So think about lots of color, lots of fruit, lots of vegetables in your diet. I think fruit has been really demonized for so long. I want to, get rid of that and bring back fruit into people's diets. And then we have to look at the emotional cravings. And this is where it takes time because it's individualistic based on, what people are struggling with all of the traits that we talked about earlier. And so we run loads of free trainings on this, on how you can start to manage your emotional cravings. But the number one thing is, who are you? You got to know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life. And unless you know these things, you're literally on a GPS that doesn't know where it's going. And so you have to have your North Stars of, some people, it's coming to the end of 2025, into 2026. People set these like ridiculous goals for themselves. Well, if you're setting the same goal for yourself as you were last year, for whose goal is that? Because it's not your goal. Get very clear on who you are. Start asking yourself, what is the best and next level version of me? who do you need to become in order to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z? Because so many people will say, well, when I hit 60 kilos, then I'm going to feel good about myself. When I've earning $100,000 a month in my business, then I'm going to feel good about myself. But that's backwards. We really need to re-engineer of who do you need to become in order to be able to find the love of your life, in order to be able to do, 100 grand a month in your business. Who is that business owner? Who is it that shows up at the gym 3 times a week, irrelevant of what's happening in her day-to-day schedule? Who is that person? And start living and acting from that place first, so that everything else will just come into alignment, because your body is a delayed representation. Your body and your health are a delayed representation of who you've been being up until this point in time. And that's why I say, don't wait until Monday, because there could be like 5-6 meals between now and Monday. You can really change your identity in that time. And so it does become just a choice, but you really do need to, put on, like in Google Maps, you put in your destination and have that as your North Star, because that is the most important thing. And yeah, you know what? That takes a little bit of work, and that takes a little bit of effort. And so if you're looking to change your life with no work and no effort, God forbid you arrive at your vague goals one day without, a bead of sweat or shedding a tear or a drop of blood. That would be so utterly boring. But welcome to the age of self-entitlement, right?
I think the way that you talk about it is so incredibly inspiring, because it's not I want X, Y, Z, whatever that might be for a particular person, but it's I want to be this person, or I am this person, and therefore these are all the things that I'm going to do, because then they associate with the self-identity that I've established. And you mentioned, you said an example there, which is I want to date X kind of person, or I want to lose this amount of weight. But the better question is, who do you need to be to attract the right things into your life?
Yes.
I want to go a little bit deeper into a really uncomfortable area for lots of people, and that's this concept of the people that you're surrounded with. And so there's this really famous quote that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. If you hang around 5 confident people, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you will be the 6th. And if you hang around 5 broke people, you will also be the 6th. This is a tough one, because many people have friends and family that are really close to them, but they're not helping to promote this people or this person that someone is trying to become. How do they go about doing that?
Okay, so you love your family, you choose your friends, right? And so you can love somebody unconditionally, but you don't necessarily have to do it as they say. You that quote, listen, smile, agree, and then do whatever you're going to do anyway. Right? I think that applies a lot to family. And sometimes with family in particular, let's talk about this in particular, because this is a really difficult one, is that you love them and you love them unconditionally. Do not over-explain yourself, but you need to be very clear in who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life. Because have you ever been with, a group of people where, like, let's talk about drinking, right? Alcohol is a classic one. This happened to me as well, where I started to say, I'm not drinking tonight, right? I'm not drinking over the next 24 hours of our 24-hour bender that we're just about to go on. I'm not drinking today. I'm going to drive. The pressure was insane. And these are from your best friends who, you've had so many memories with. And that's really hard to say no to. But I'm really stubborn. And so the more stubborn you can be and the more certain you can be in your decision making, people won't question it. It's like saying, oh, well, I don't think I'm going to drink today because, I want to get up tomorrow and I quite like to, get up before this cafe gets really busy and go for my walk and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, go on, just have one. Like, it's the gateway then, right? You just have one, go and have a second. You get a second, you get your little buzz going
And suddenly you're not making the same type of decision anymore.
Exactly that. Whereas if you say, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm actually just not going to come tonight because it's a really difficult environment for me to be in. I want to party. I don't want to do this anymore. I've decided that I'm going to live my life differently. Most people will be like, ooh, like, okay, she's serious now. She's actually serious about change. And so you have to understand that the psychology of what happens with somebody else when you make the decision to change. Because this is one, it can be really triggering for people because it can expose a lot of their own insecurities as well. You know, if you've developed a relationship with somebody and you're a friendship group, which is like kind of like drinking buddies, and like you think you're all like best buds and like pally with people when actually they're just drinking buddies, like that can put your relationship on a rocky road. And that brings up their insecurities as well of, oh, well, if this person is trying to make themselves better and get healthier, that makes me feel guilty and I don't want to feel guilty. So then it's kind of like the crabs in a bucket situation where you've got all these crabs in a bucket and you've always got one crab who tries to get out. And then the other crabs are kind of pulling them down, right? And so you have to understand that any change doesn't come without its struggles. And it doesn't come without a phase of sometimes loneliness. And I think that this is one of the best things that I think the internet has given us is like communities where there are online communities, but nothing beats face-to-face communities. And understanding that part of your journey and part of the loneliness of your journey is the gift that you need to give yourself in order to be able to become the person who gets the thing, right? And when you understand, don't reject that part. Accept this is part of the process. And when you come to that point of acceptance that this is part of the process, whilst you still actively go out, you try to make new friends, you're going to make new friends at the gym, you're building new communities, accept this is part of the process. It becomes a lot easier.
I've also found that as you start to change and evolve, and everyone changes and evolves throughout life, it just depends on the way that you do it. The right people will never question or misunderstand your ambitions for growth either.
No.
And so it doesn't mean that there is anything wrong with that change. But as you've just said, it is a process to
Yes.
go through and understand that. And there's nothing personal about it either, because it's also confronting to the people around you. But I've definitely found that really associating myself through whatever kind of endeavors of life with people that resonate with the person that I want to be and I identify with is just becomes far more rewarding.
I think you'll find as well, like, especially with, you know, whether it's like choosing healthier food or, you know, I remember a couple of years ago going back to the UK and instead of like going out for dinner with somebody, I'd be like, should we go out for a walk? And it was met with, yeah, that's a great idea. And like, why didn't I think about that before? So you just go, you know, grab a coffee and we'll go for a walk instead of, you know, going out for a, you know, boozy lunch. Which is what we used to do when we were in our 20s and it was so much fun. And then we kind of go on into the evening and then we'd have like wake up the next day going, oh my God, what did I do yesterday? And we'd have like the chats about it and we team bonded over that. That was fun. No regrets, just stories. But life goes on, like life changes. And so you be the leader in that. Start suggesting new things. Start suggesting going out for a walk. Start going to do like new activities because people will follow. That's a great idea. And oh my gosh, wow, you've lost so much weight. Like you look amazing. What are you doing? And it does inspire other people. So, you know, don't be disheartened by other people saying to you, oh, you shouldn't be doing that or, you know, whatever it might be. But understand that you will also inspire them to make change themselves.
I couldn't agree more. Rachel, we're going to end with a 30-second speed round before we wrap up the podcast. And so the way that this works is I'll say a word and you just need to say overrated or underrated and a one-sentence explanation why.
Okay, let's go.
Ozempic.
Oh, this is like, I could do a full podcast on this. Overrated because most people do not do the work that is required in conjunction with a GLP. And I think majority of doctors overdose a GLP. I think there has to be somewhere in the middle there where if we're going to use GLP, I know this is more than one sentence, but if we are going to use a GLP, minimal effective dose, right? Microdosing at best, just to minimize the food noise whilst we introduce all of the habits needed.
Okay, the 5 a.m. club.
Oh, underrated. Why? Like, I mean, 4:30 for me. Like, it's the best. Like, if you want to get ahead of your day, like, you need to be up before the world.
Cheat meal.
Overrated. Because why are you waiting for, like, why are we calling it a cheat meal? Like, if you want an almond croissant or if you want your pizza because it's a Wednesday night and you really just fancy a pizza, like, why not just have a pizza?
I love it. Work-life balance.
Overrated. You know, when you love what you do, there is no balance, but there should be alignment. And the two are very different things.
And motivation.
Overrated. We want discipline. Motivation comes and goes. Let's be honest. Discipline equals freedom.
Rachel, this show is called Moonshot. We talk about chasing big goals. As a final question, I want to ask you about advice that you'd give to others. You often talk about what is the point of success if you don't have the health to enjoy it. For anyone listening that wants to go on their own transformation, achieve their own type of moonshot goal without breaking their body in the process, what would you say to them?
Know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life, and make your decisions from that place and your best self, not from other people's expectations of you. And I think so many people make decisions and goals because of the way that they think that they will be seen rather than what they really want. And so when you go after what you really want, irrelevant of what the external environment will tell you, what's trendy or not, that is what's going to bring alignment and fulfillment. And that's ultimately what is going to bring success as well.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining the Moonshot Podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Moonshot. If you were inspired by the conversation today, please subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode of the Moonshot Podcast. I'll see you next time for another thought-provoking conversation.